All right, 25 minutes before 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in this somewhat busy Monday morning. We have a guest on the phone. He's been with us before. He is Alan Patch, A.K. Patch. He's a retired United States Navy captain, an historian, a researcher, a board member of the Friends of Classics at San Diego State University. He's a member of the Hellenic Society of San Diego and a judge for the San Diego History Fair. And he's written a few books, actually. I think the one we talked about last time that he was on the air was Delphi's Chosen. And I think that was the second book in a series, if I remember right correctly. A.K. Patch, good morning, Alan. Thank you for being on the show with us again today. Good morning, sir.
Oh, I'm happy to be with you again, Larry and Robin.
How are you?
Yeah. Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
Oh, good. You're in California?
Yeah, I'm in California and San Diego.
All right. Well, thank you for getting up early to be with us today.
I have a dog. The dog always gets up early, so I am too. You know how that goes.
When we look at the things that kind of help to mold history, I can't think of a better word than mold, form history, the things that lead up to other things, like for example, Pearl Harbor was something that was led up to by other things. If Kim Jong-un decides to send a rocket, God forbid, there are other things happening right now that will lead up to that. Not that we're causing it. I'm just saying there are historical events. You have a way, a knack of being able to help us see those things that maybe weren't really taught in school as precursors to the big things.
Well, it's true. There is cause and effect, and events that lead up to these dramatic events in our history. But, as we go back and look at this is also, in relation to human nature. They go back and they say, well, history repeats itself. But really, the original statement from a Greek historian way back when was that by reason of human nature, that which happened before will happen again. It's kind of a more interesting way of looking at it, because it is human nature that really creates history, unless it's the earth itself.
And I'm wondering if you agree with this. I have a theory that a lot of the problems we've had in this world and a lot of things that shaped history were egos.
Well, it's true, and just to get back a little bit to Greek mythology, is the whole idea of arrogance, which is exactly what you're talking about, ego or hubris. Mm-hmm. And that was their word for it. But yeah, arrogance is an issue, at least in mythology, because if you were arrogant, that meant you thought you were a god. And you can't be a god. Only the Olympians like Zeus and Hera and Athena, only they could be gods. So the Greeks kind of looked at the situation and said, well, if you're arrogant, that means you think you're as good as a god. Oh, wow. And you better not, because what's going to happen is the gods are going to come down with this big giant fly swatter and whack you right back down to earth.
And the fly swatter wasn't even invented
yet. Yeah. So it's true what you say, that ego is involved in a lot of this. It's true.
So do you, can you help, like if we study let me ask you this, is Patches of History a series that we can read, or is it on video? Where is it?
Well, Patches of History is, what it is I'm taking events in history, I'm kind of relating it to the modern day, but it's really more of a radio series right now. I have the two books, Passage of Delphi and Delphi's Chosen, which is kind of in the same vein. It's a historical fiction series, but it has to do with the lessons of history in really an effort to save Western civilization. So it's an adventure. It's sort of an epic adventure, and involves people in the past and people in the present day. But that's what Patches of History is. Patch of History is involved in bringing out these events in the past and bringing them to the current day, the modern day, and relating them to what's going on now.
One of your examples is Paul Revere, and you just don't bring out one part of him. You bring out his whole history, and I never knew some of the things.
Well, many people have more than one talent in their lives. They have different careers. They may do one job, but they have a hobby on the side. And Paul Revere is one of these people who is multi-talented. We know him for his Midnight Ride, but there's something else that's really incredible that we should know about him, and that's what I want to tell you about today. And but first of all, Paul Revere was in Boston. He was a silversmith. He took over for his father, and he was famous for making these tea sets and also engravings. Like if you ever seen the engraving of the Boston Massacre, he's responsible for that.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah, I mean, he's very talented, but the British economic policies, which helped to cause the Revolutionary War, brought a severe depression in the colonies, and so his silver business went down. And that's when he met someone down the street who was a dentist, and he taught Paul Revere to be a dentist.
Is that how silver ended up in our teeth?
Yeah.
Well, it was used. You have to, they did so many different things then. They would use animal teeth and tie them in with wire, or they would, get different kinds of materials to make teeth. Everybody thinks that Paul Revere made George Washington's set of wooden teeth. That's not true. It's one of these, things that's said, but it's not true. They would make false teeth out of bone. They would use metal and wire and try to tie the teeth in. And if you go down to Mount Vernon, George Washington's set of teeth are down there, and they're not made of wood.
They're not wood. I think I've seen them. We're going to have Thanksgiving, by the way, in the same place that George Washington retired.
Yes. Nice.
Oh, is that right? Oh, that's wonderful.
In New York, there's a restaurant called the Frances down in Lower Manhattan. And when I was a kid, I remember learning that George Washington retired and had his party there or something. And so it was just one of the whims I wanted to do. So,
yeah. And if you look at the list of what they drank that night, you'd be surprised.
Were they? Oh, really? Were they all friends? Was like Paul Revere friends? Were they all friends with everybody else?
Well, that's true also, because he becomes part of the Sons of Liberty in Boston, who are, watching the movement of the British soldiers and protesting these policies. So he knows Sam Adams and John Hancock, but also another very influential figure that people don't really know much about, this guy named Dr. Joseph Warren. He's 34 years old. He's a respected physician, and he's the leader. He's the chairman of the Committee of Safety in Boston. And so he's in a position where he's directing what he wants people to do. So on the night of April of 1875, as the poem goes, on the midnight of Paul Revere, he's the one that sends out Paul Revere and another rider that night to go to Lexington and Concord. Well, a lot of people don't know there was a second rider that night, William Dawes. Oh. And so that's another patch of the history story. Wow. We can get into that another time if you want.
Wow.
But he's the one who sends Revere and Dawes out that night. So he's a very important figure. And then after the shot heard around the world and this rebellion gets going in Boston, he's second in command a couple months later when the British attack Bunker Hill, or Breeds Hill as we know it in Boston. I'm from Boston, by the way. So
oh, okay. Okay. All right.
History for me, I grew up there in Plymouth and in Boston, and if you've ever been there, it's wonderful to go see those sites. But yes, Dr. Joseph Warren is second in command when the Battle of Bunker Hill happens. And that's a history that's interesting also, the story of Bunker Hill, because, the British attacked twice. And the Minutemen repulsed those charges, and, the British have terrible casualties. Well, on the third charge, the Minutemen are running out of ammunition, and they start to run. And Dr. Joseph Warren was trying to lead sort of a rear guard. Some said he stayed there and tried to form a rear guard, and other people said no, he ran with everyone else. So in the end, nobody knew for sure, and they argued about it afterwards, but he got killed in that third charge. And the British were so mad at him because they knew him. He was a respected man, that they, after he was shot, they bayoneted him repeatedly, and all these terrible things, and then they took all these bodies and they dumped them in a shallow grave.
Oh my gosh! Let's take a little break. A.K. Patch is our guest. Patches of History is what we're talking about, the radio series, and Paul Revere and our own Revolutionary War history. We'll be right back.
It was brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. More clouds and sun and breezy on this Monday with a stray shower, high 82 to 86. Partly cloudy Monday night with a shower in spots along the coast, low 70 inland, 78 along the coast. Breezy tomorrow, Tuesday, with clouds and sun. There'll be a shower at any time, except a couple of showers and even a thunderstorm near the coast, the high 82 at the coast, 86 inland. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
Hello, gorgeous.
Hi, this is Becky at Hello Gorgeous Salon. Let's get rid of those sun-damaged ends and faded out color and get into something rich and vibrant. It's time to get that new look started. So call today and set up your appointment at Hello Gorgeous Salon, 351-5358. Hello Gorgeous is a certified Brazilian blowout salon. We can tame those locks, leaving your hair healthy and shiny with a Brazilian smoothing treatment. And whether you're going on a job interview or out on a date, your hands do a lot of talking. Manicures are a must. Hello Gorgeous is a full-service salon, so let us help you make a great first impression. Call us today to set your appointment at Hello Gorgeous. Our number is 352-351-5358. Again, that's 352-351-5358. Hello Gorgeous is conveniently located in the heart of downtown Ocala, right next to the historic Marion Theater. And don't forget, we also do men and children's cuts too.
Hello, gorgeous.
Hey, this is Matt Wilkerson from Verizon. You work all day, right? So why would you want to spend your night out shopping for that new phone? Well, Marion County, let me and Verizon help you out. I can deliver to your home or office, saving you precious time. Phone, tablets, internet, home phones, even accessories. Whatever you need, we will deliver free of charge. Call me at the store, 352-528-0020. That's 528-0020.
We all know that sound means there's going to be some need for collision repair work, and soon. What you may not know is that it's your choice where to have that collision work done, not the other guy's insurance company. Because your vehicle is much more than just transportation. It's like a family member. So don't bring it to just any chain collision center. Bring it to Lyle's Collision Service. When it comes to getting your vehicle back to 100%, you can count on Lyle's Collision Service. They're not some fly-by-night chain company. They're a family-owned and run collision center with over 33 years of experience. Working with collision repairs and vehicle restoration, Lyle's Collision only uses quality parts and doesn't take shortcuts like some other companies. They take pride in getting the job done right and in a timely manner. They specialize in insurance claims and they strive to get your vehicle back to you as soon as possible. So the next time you hear this, remember, it's your choice. And the choice is clear. Lyle's Collision Service.
All right, 12 minutes before 11 o'clock. It is 78 degrees. Temperatures are not expected to get that warm today. I think it says 83, and there's about a 15% chance of rain. Hey, we kind of left you with a cliffhanger, didn't we? We have on the phone A.K. Patch. He's got a radio series called Patches of History. He's got a couple of well-written books. He's been a guest of ours before, and if you ever are in a room with him talking history, just shut up. Let him talk, because he knows his stuff. I never knew some of these things about Paul Revere. Is this something?
He's a hero.
Alan, have you done this all your life? Have you always been fascinated by history?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, I started loving history because I grew up in Plymouth, Massachusetts. You know, how can you not?
Yeah, right.
From those early days, I was going to Boy Scout camp. It was Camp Squanto. I mean, it's that involved, and you know the history. You live it. You're right around it. When I received my commission in the Navy, I received it on the USS Constitution, Old Ironsides in Boston. And when I retired 26 later, I had my retirement flag flown over the decks.
Is that right?
So,
wow.
It was kind of a wonderful beginning and end, to my career.
Who do we thank for our, the Bill of Rights? Who do we thank for that? I mean, not the people who wrote it, but I mean, which culture did it come from? From the ancient Greeks? Actually, I've heard that before.
Well, there's seeds. The seeds of democracy were set in ancient Greece, but it was a different kind of democracy back then. Although, there's some similarities. In order to vote in Athens, you had to be a landowner and you had to have served in the military. And so, as we go into our, we have the period of Enlightenment in France and England, which helped to contribute to how we were able to eventually write the Bill of Rights and our Constitution, the Declaration of Independence. We draw these ideas from this accumulated history or accumulated civilization over a long period of time, trial and error, things going well, things not going well, civilized acts, barbaric acts, and in the oppression of power. And so as they're developing this, they're understanding this is what happens sometimes in monarchies, is there's too much power. So they made an effort to divide up the power so no one had too much of it.
Yeah.
And that's how we get back to the revolution and this idea of fighting for independence, and which brings us back to Paul Revere and this whole incident at Bunker Hill, because it's the first kind of pitched battle between these patriots and the British Army, which was renowned at the time, the most powerful army in the world, at least in the Western world. And so, they go up the hill on this third charge, and Dr. Joseph Warren gets killed, and they desecrate his body. 2 days later, a British officer is so angry with him, he comes back and mutilates his body and cuts his head off.
God.
Can you believe this? They're so mad at him. And so they bury the body in this ditch, and then the Revolutionary War goes on from there. Well, 10 months later, Dr. Warren's brothers and Paul Revere come back because they want to find his body and bury it properly. Well, how are they going to identify it? Well, it turns out that Paul Revere was Dr. Warren's dentist. And so he made him a little partial denture, which is like a little clip with a false tooth on it.
Wow.
And he had put that on his upper left side, so as they're going through all these sort of bodies that are in this grave, they find the skull, and they can identify that it's Dr. Warren.
Oh, my God.
But there's something even more important.
What's that?
When they pick up the skull, they see that there's a bullet hole right under his left eye. So that meant that he died facing the enemy, and he did not run. So all that conjecture about what happened, was he there? Did he run with others? So Revere also proved his heroism.
Wow. What's interesting to me is who we call heroes, and not just in that story, but in throughout history, because sometimes I think the heroes are the ones who put the useful and fair thinking thought onto paper, because once it's on paper, it seems like then we can instrumentalize it, I guess. But it takes the other heroes, the ones with the weapons, to actually physically fight against those who don't want us to adopt whatever it has been written on that paper.
It's true. You can think of sort of three kinds of heroes. You can think of the occupational heroes, like our military, our police, fire, and rescue, those kind of individuals. And then the circumstantial heroes, who are people who, let's think about this incident in Las Vegas. Our hearts go out to these people who lost their lives and were injured, and in this tragedy. But we're probably going to hear soon of heroes who put themselves in danger to help other people during that incident. I hope that we learn who those people are, because we need to know who these heroes are. And a lot of times they're forgotten, like Dr. Joseph Warren. He's forgotten. Unsung heroes fall from our attention. It's unfortunate we concentrate on things that maybe aren't so important, but we should know who these people are in our history, and even now, because it helps improve our culture. It advances civilization to know that there are things worth fighting for and preserving, which goes back to what you're saying, is that we really have to recognize that there's heroes that are sort of in a military way, but also in a social justice way.
What is your thought on some of these statue removals and things like that? People who were revered as heroes, but maybe were on the other side of history. Robert E. Lee, of course, comes to mind. And in, I guess, as a secondary question, maybe if you could answer both sort of in the same train of thought. Are there people in history that we've held up as heroes that, when you looked at what they did, they really weren't heroic?
Well, that's true. People are not perfect. We have no perfect human beings. Maybe, they're known for one great act, but maybe not others. We have to judge these heroes in the time of when they're living also. It's hard in some ways to go back and take our standards today and set them against how things were then. And I think that's one issue, that this issue of taking down the statues, is that this is part of our history. It can't be ignored. We like to look at both sides of these things all the time, but it's kind of a slippery slope, isn't it? If you start taking down one thing, you can start taking down another, and where does it stop?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I know. So what about like people like Alexander the Great? Everybody's the Great always bothers me because how is he great if he was just murdering people? Mm-hmm. That would be like calling Hitler the Great, right?
Yeah.
Well, he is a conqueror. That's true. You would look at someone like Alexander the Great and say, okay, yes, in his effort to conquer all these lands, many people were slaughtered, and that's true. On the other side, you would look at the accomplishment as how could he possibly have done it? And then secondly, he was able to spread Greek culture all around the world. Because when he brought Greek culture to the Middle East and to all the way to India, the Greek influence was picked up in that area between which is now Afghanistan and Pakistan. And so there were kingdoms there which were Greco-Buddhist kingdoms, if you can imagine that. And so, early on, Buddha was sort of, when you'd have a symbol of Buddha was like a lotus flower or something like that. Mm-hmm. Afterwards, he became more personalized. He looked like he was a man, and he wore like a Greek robe. Mm-hmm. So these influences go all around. Sometimes you have the Silk Road there. What comes west goes east, and what's east comes west. And that's the interesting thing about history is we have influences from all these different places. So if you're looking at Alexander, you could say, yes, he's a conqueror and thousands were slaughtered. And that's true. In another sense, he spread Greek culture and civilization to the east. And then there were further developments from that in many different ways.
And I guess you could say the same thing about Christopher Columbus and everything that followed in his path. I mean, the fact that the indigenous people of this continent were basically genocide. What's the verb for genocide? But anyway, they were done away with. More or less. Right. But yet, at the same time, the world wouldn't be what it is if we didn't have America.
Well, that's true, and I would love to do another segment with you around the time of Thanksgiving, being that I'm from Plymouth, because we could talk very much about the situation with what happened there with the Pilgrims and the Native Americans who were there, and what happened before and after. That's another interesting story that people should really know. We have these sort of sanitized views of history given to us. But the real history is sometimes a bit different.
Alan, thank you for being on the air with us. Let me give or ask you to give some websites so we can follow you and maybe even tune into the radio show, the Patches of History show.
Yes, you can always go to my author website, which is akpatchauthor.com. My last name is spelled Patch, just like Patch Adams. And I have a Facebook fan page, which is called Passage at Delphi. And Delphi is the temple that they had in ancient Greece where people went to learn the future. And so that's kind of part of my novel series, and you can go there on Facebook, and it's always fun bringing up these historical events, and I get to mold a lot of this into my book series.
It fills in a lot of blanks for me too. I mean, you realize as you get older that you didn't learn a lot of the things you learned, just a few pieces here and there, and you connect the dots and make the picture so much bigger and maybe more understandable. AK Patch, Alan, thank you so much for being on the air with us today. AK Patch Author.
All right, thank you, Larry and Robin.
Thank you. All right, we are taking a break. We'll be right back with more AM Ocala Live after this.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
Fox News Radio, I'm Chris Foster. The man who opened fire on a country music festival in Las Vegas, we're told, had at least 10 guns with platforms set up to fire from a hotel room window and cameras to spot first responders coming to get him. He was dead when police arrived.
Our suspect was identified as Stephen Craig Paddock, 64 years old, a white male.